Hello, this is Brooke Brown from Trending Topics with BB podcast. Fantasy sports fans are winning huge cash prizes every day at DraftKings.com, America's favorite place to play daily fantasy sports. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments, play whenever you want. So just pick your sport and draft your team. It's like a new season every time you play, so you're never stuck with the same players. Over $1 billion will be won at DraftKings.com this year, and you could be the next one to win big. Go to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code CULTURE to play free. That's CULTURE for free entry now at DraftKings.com. Not a fan of fantasy sports? Well, that's okay. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb. That's audibletrial.com/trendingtopicswithbb and get started today. Why Audible? Audible content includes more than 180,000 audio programs from leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. Hello and welcome to another rousing edition of Trending Topics with BB. I am your humble host, Brooke Brown, hence the BB. I like to point that out. I don't know. Anyway, on this week's episode, it features a fantastic man. I know him by the name SuperStarDJROS. He's known for being a party rocker all over the world, celebrity DJing, creating a global brand. He will talk a little bit more about that throughout the podcast. But before we get to that, I do want to let you know about where to find me, per se. You can find Trending Topics with BB episodes on brookembrown.com. If you are not privy to the website, even though all my links are available there, you can find me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. I do have my own way of doing that. There's links on my website, brookembrown.com. But on Twitter, I'm at Saxy15. And the same on Instagram and pretty much anywhere else, Tumblr. And to find this podcast on SoundCloud as well, if you go to SoundCloud, it's soundcloud.com/trendingtopicswithbb. If you can't find it there, go to iTunes, look up Trending Topics with BB podcast, and give us a good rating and a good comment if you are becoming a fan of what you hear on this podcast. So, to get back to what I was saying is, you will find the conversation interesting. You'll hear some stories about this individual and how he knows some well-known celebrities. He has a documentary coming out. He'll talk a little bit about that and all kinds of goodness about the DJ game, previous DJs. We mentioned the late, great DJ AM and the style of DJing and the way things have changed. So without further ado, and giving away any of the goodness, I give you Superstar DJ Ross.
All right, well, so, Rose, again, I want to thank you for joining my podcast this week, and I know we've been in touch over the years through social media and through my projects, and I've been following your projects, and I actually haven't had a chance to make it out to Atlanta to see you spin live, but one of these days I will. So let's just kind of start with how I know we've talked about musical influences and how you kind of began with that, but how did you kind of get into being a DJ, and what was that like one of your first loves? Did you always think you were going to be a DJ rocking the clubs or traveling the world?
I will give you the cliff notes on that. No, I did not think that. Actually, at this point, I didn't think I'd still be DJing. But the short version is my dad was a DJ. So I grew up in a house where, and then we're West Indian, so there was always music. And because my dad was a DJ, and back in that particular time, mid '70s, it was you listen to everything. So you could hear anything from James Brown to Charlie Daniels and his band, and Alabama to Michael Jackson. There was Jackson 5. So I kind of just was always around music. And what ended up happening was I had a cousin from New York that, I don't know, he brought a tape of someone DJing on one of the radio stations, and I'm listening and I'm trying to figure out how they're doing what they're doing with the records. I'm probably 9 years old at the time, and I still have an old Fisher Price record player at the house, and I just started messing around with that, and then I figured out a way to kind of jimmy the knob on it, because there was only like 3 or 4 knobs on the front. This is like really old school, but there was a knob that you could decide to play records and radio, and I figured out a way to jimmy it where the radio would play at the same time that the record would play. So once I figured out how to do that, I could learn to mix my records with the records that were on the radio, and that's how I learned the beat match initially. And as far as DJing, it's just one of those things where it grew from me messing around in the house and getting a full DJ set to actually DJing in my middle school. So I did all of the, matter of fact, I did my first DJ gig in 5th grade at my elementary school. And then I DJ'd all of my dances at the middle school and DJ'd all the dances in high school, DJ'd all through college. It didn't take any school loans out. I basically played every fraternity, sorority party, etc. And then I quit, which is funny because I thought I was done with it, and I thought I would go off into a Fortune 500 company and the real world and get a real job, and I did that, and for some reason, it's just one of those things that I kind of kept messing around with the music. And then once I moved to Atlanta, after school in Virginia, I started DJing on the weekends at a roller skating rink, one of the most popular ones here, and just began being heard by people that mattered. And before you knew it, I was being invited out to the major clubs in the city, and it kind of just blew up from there. And I've been doing it ever since.
Okay, so you didn't initially take to DJing as a career initially, so it was not one of those.
No, here's the thing. To answer that, it wasn't, unless you were in radio, and at one point I was a radio DJ, but at the start, the only DJs we saw were Jam Master Jay with Run DMC, Grandmaster D with Houdini, whoever had a DJ, Mixmaster Ice with UTFO. So it wasn't like there was any kind of career path. There were no superstar DJs. There was no, DJs or the rock stars. None of that. So you really couldn't visualize at that point a career as a DJ as I am now, because it didn't exist. Not really. You had a few people in the house world that were doing things, but the general mainstream was not aware of that, and neither really was I. So no, it was strictly a hobby that kind of kept going.
Okay. Now, in terms, like you just mentioned, another thing, to the young listeners that don't understand the work it was back in the day with the tapes and everything, but what I want to get at is the fact that, there's still radio today, but back in the day, radio DJs were actually DJs. Could you kind of expand a little bit on how things have adapted and how radio DJs today really aren't DJs? They just play a track, or it's just free. They just introduce it. So,
right. Well, radio was different. Period. It was one of those things that you really could count on the radio. Number one, radio personalities really had personalities, so it wasn't a situation where you hear literally the same 20 songs every hour. You literally had people who had the ability to interact with the city that they were in. So it wasn't just the music that drew you in. It was also the DJ. The DJ not only was a personality, but in most cases, and even when I was in radio, I was the person that could handle the rush hour traffic broadcast, but I also did the mix show. So it's really a different situation, because nowadays you have so much consolidation in that business that the records that you hear on the radio are, whether people call it payola or not, they're bought and paid for. Back then, it was a big thing to actually break new artists and break new records. And it's unfortunate, because I think some of the younger listeners that you referenced, I think they're missing out on an era that was just magical. So for me, to be able to listen to a Mr. Magic or a Howie T or Red Alert, and all of those New York legends, and then hear them mix the records. Not only would they talk it up and give you some background behind the artist or introduce you to somebody new, but they actually could really mix. those are the experiences that shaped my DJ foundation aside from my dad and what was happening in my house. These are the guys that basically, even to this day, 20 years later, I'm still using things that I learned in the foundation, and it doesn't exist now. You're absolutely right.
And do you think that may be a contributing factor? I mean, other than the advancement in technology, but a contributing factor into why people, unless they have it in their car is old, or they don't want to pay for like internet radio or Sirius or any of those services today, do you think that's why a lot of people typically have shifted from original radio, and that radio stations and corporations that like iHeartRadio and maybe CBS Radio, some of these big corporations that have a lot of radio stations under them are trying their best to stay relevant?
Well, I don't want to insult people that I do business with, but that being said, I'm a very honest person, so I'll say the truth. For me, especially someone who used to be, I was the youngest program director in Virginia history when I was a program director of a radio station there. And I had the opportunity to actually come in and formulate a sound for our station, who actually was in last place at the time, and I brought it from last all the way to second. And the idea that I went into is I wanted to play really good music, and I wanted to dig into albums of artists and play records that we knew that may not be singles, but would be great things that we thought our listeners would enjoy. Now that is just prehistoric at this point, because through consolidation, when you have like a Clear Channel or an iHeartRadio that owns all of these channels across the country, all of the programming sounds alike. And not only does the programming sound alike, it's a situation where it's the same 20 records being played literally 100 times a day. When you have that situation and you've gotten rid of the personalities and there's nothing but commercials over and over and over again, there's nothing to draw. There's nothing to maintain a listener's ear. There's no DJ that's doing anything with music that's exciting. You've heard the commercial so much you can recite it yourself, and the music is really just not that good. And then on top of it, if it is good, you've heard it 4 million times at this point. Who needs to hear it 4 million and one? So, I really think that more so than anything else, the repetition, the lack of originality, and the formulaic way that they go about programming nowadays has just killed the listeners. The listeners are just leaving in droves because of that.
Okay. Well, I just kind of wanted to get at, like, your thoughts based on the fact that you were, working in radio. All right. So kind of to move along, I know we could talk for hours about it, but kind of to move along. So once you kind of got back into the hobby of DJing, what kind of made you decide that you're going to kind of expand your brand and kind of go for it? Was it the influences from other DJs, like, in the business, like the huge notoriety that EDM was getting?
Not at all.
Or
Not at all. I can stop that question now because my answer is not going to be sexy, but my answer is going to be honest. My decision to actually become a professional DJ was out of necessity because I was working for a Fortune 500 company that had a division that was paper-based, and that industry was moving towards internet-based, and our division just disappeared. So when I was faced with that professional situation not being there, but the hobby being there, I started looking at the hobby differently. And what ended up happening was, out of necessity, I had to put more muscle behind the DJ business because it was bringing in money, but it wasn't something that I was sustaining my life with. And luckily for me, this predates EDM and predates, the explosion of DJ's popularity in the U.S. So I was positioning myself and now moving around in celebrity circles and things of that nature before the DJ explosion came. So by the time that, things were being called EDM and all of this, and even during the early DJ AM days, I was already moving around just because I decided to get serious. So I know a lot of people, when they're entering the business, they look at the big DJs and that's their inspiration. That wasn't my case. My case was, out of necessity, I had to take this thing that I had been doing since I was a child and really make it become a career. And luckily for me, it worked.
Okay. Well, for those who may have a different perspective on it. So you just mentioned somebody that I know you and I have talked about, and you have mixes to attribute this person, but can you kind of talk about DJ AM and the influence and kind of really what's important about the open format and DJing other than just playing what, somebody tells you to play?
Right. Yeah, open format, what a lot of people don't understand is open format was the original way that hip-hop DJs began to play. And if a person doubts that, all they have to do is go and pull up Grandmaster Flash's Adventures on the Wheels of Steel and listen. He's got Chic, Good Times, he's got Blondie, Rapture, a variety of things being mixed in that are not traditional. So you didn't, even though it was considered to be a hip-hop record based upon hip-hop culture, it was not a traditionally hip-hop record. That's how everything started. Africa Bambaataa and these guys were always throwing in disco records and, Eurobeat records and things of that nature at the very beginning. So somewhere along the line, we had lost that. Once hip-hop actually became a thing and there was actually rap records, you would get a rap set, you'd get a reggae set, and maybe an old school set, old school R&B set. But that's about it. That was the extent of traditional open format. The thing I liked about AM was AM, and though he wasn't the person that necessarily pioneered it, he was the person that really helped true new school open format move to the forefront. So what that means is now you can play not only rap records, but you can also mix in pop, you can mix in rock, you can mix in classics from disco to R&B, et cetera, and so on. And I loved that. I loved that era between 2004 and 2010-ish, where DJs were truly trying to be daring. DJs were really looking for records like the Queen records and, a variety of things that you just wouldn't hear in a nightclub, and truly taking people on a musical journey. Now, that's kind of changed nowadays. There's still open format, but it's not as daring as it was when DJ M was still at the forefront of it. I think DJs now are playing it a bit too safe. But open format to me is, if you can really play that, if you can not lose a crowd, that to me means you're a real DJ. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of this era of new DJs just doesn't understand.
Right. And I had the privilege of seeing AM spin before he passed away in
Right.
Vegas. And it was I will say this again, it's probably one of the most fun nights I've ever had in a Vegas nightclub. Since then, there's been nothing to compare it. I mean, even though I am an EDM junkie, I'm not going to be saying that going to see Tiesto or Calvin Harris or whoever's headlining the residency now will measure up to the way he was because of that reason, because it was such an eclectic mix of music mixed perfectly that it made sense. And I missed that part of going out to a club. I think that's why a lot of people, I don't know, people still go out to clubs, but people have a different sense of what it means to be in a club or to go see a DJ or something because of the shift. Now, can you expand a little bit about what your thoughts on why maybe it did, other than, tragically losing AM, but other than that, why things, just because I like EDM, but it seems like it's taken over Vegas and other parts of the country, even Miami. Why are we having it so it seems like it's, you either like hip hop or you either like EDM and there's no mix anymore?
Well, that's a good question. The push is behind EDM. And it's interesting to me because being someone who was touring when electronic music was blowing up before it hit the U.S., and it wasn't even being called EDM, and for the most part you would hear the subgenres like, electro or dubstep or, et cetera and so on. And then all of a sudden, for branding purposes, electronic dance music, which, it all is electronic dance music, so it's kind of a weird title, but that became the brand that everything fell under. So with that being said, even though hip-hop is, what's called today's hip-hop is still doing what it's doing, EDM has been the only genre in the last 10 years to show growth. country music sustained, but as far as a growing music genre, it has been EDM. And EDM is accessible. You don't have a situation where you have DJs that are actually acting stupid or killing people or doing, dumb things. I mean, these are really, for the most part, in most cases, really clean cut, good looking guys that you can put in a Ralph Lauren ad and things of that nature. So it sounds like I'm off the subject, but the reason I'm saying that is because EDM is in a place that hip hop was in probably 15 to 17 years ago, where you had records that actually would translate well to a Sprite commercial. You had artists that would translate well to a Chrysler commercial. Right now, you can't put a Young Thug in a commercial. You can't put a Future in a commercial. So hip-hop is not viable in regards to a situation where you could elevate it the same way that EDM. And then EDM is just one of those things where there's a new culture that goes with it. And that's one of the reasons I like it. I like it a lot because people are out to have a good time. Now, me being an old school hip-hop head, and that's where I started, I remember when hip-hop was that. I remember when hip-hop was not dangerous. So you have a situation where club owners are a lot more comfortable booking acts that play EDM more so than, a situation where it's a hip-hop act. Number one, you can sell tables for higher, and number two, the crowd's better looking. Number three, it's one of those things that is a wider range of people that you can market your entertainment to. And it just kind of, from a business standpoint, makes sense. Now, all of that being said, when it comes down to the DJ component to that equation, we have 1 million new DJs that have jumped in because they want to be the next Calvin Harris. They want to be the next Tiesto, and they go get the haircuts, and they get the fashionable clothes, and they do the photo shoots and all of this kind of stuff. That is my concern with EDM. We as hip-hop DJs couldn't play out until we were dope. And I think that's what people don't understand. The era that I came up in, we wanted to be known for being dope. This era, people want to be known and then try to be dope. It's the cart before the horse. So a lot of times when someone like yourself is in the crowd, you can tell the difference between the guy who's really dope and known for being dope versus the guy who's being known, who's just known and popular, who's playing records. And that affects the club environment. That affects the entertainment. You just said before you asked me the question that you don't get that feeling that an AM gave you. Well, AM became popular because AM was dope. And that's one of the major differences, if not the major difference.
So with that being said, in the difference, is it harder now because everybody wants to be a DJ all of a sudden because they've seen the success and the marketability of some of the big names? Is it harder now for those who came up like you to, I mean, you had your success in your own way, but
right,
to be respected in the game?
Again, I speak honestly, so I'm going to answer this honestly. I don't love it the way I used to. And it's funny because it's the best of times and the worst of times at the same damn time. And it's funny, we say this all the time. And what I mean by that is, as DJs, we've never been more visible. There's never been a situation. You have to understand, someone like myself, I've never been managed by anybody, but I've had, endorsement deals with Monster, Beats by Dre, Sony, Native Instruments, a variety, Adidas, a variety of companies that I've done business with just based upon me being a dope DJ who's handled his brand well. That would have never happened 10 years ago. It just didn't exist. So when I think about the opportunities to be able to move around and do things based upon the popularity, it's a wonderful thing. Now, the flip of that is I've never played a free DJ set in my life. So when I look at the young guys who are getting in the game and they have been sold this bill of goods where they think that just because they're getting an opportunity to play at a popular club or a popular party or whatever, and their name is on the flyer and they get a chance to have a guest list, they're more excited about being able to say they're a DJ and have their name on the flyer versus us, where we had to earn our way up. And for me, I think you can be the veteran who's mad And on social media, sometimes I had to catch myself because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be giving voice all the time to just everything that sucks about this new era. But the flip of that is, and I'm writing a book that actually addresses this. The name of the book is How to Be a $1 Million DJ. And I decided to write that to kind of give a blueprint, because it's one of those things to, those guys that go and play for free and they just want to be seen by girls and things of that nature, they don't last more than 2 to 3 years. I mean, I can pretty much predict when a person starts, if that's their game, when they're going to exit. And I've been very good at it. So I don't love it anymore because, well, I'm not saying anymore. I don't love it the way I used to because the authenticity is in question now, if that makes sense.
Right. So everybody's intentions has changed as opposed to the way when you began, if that understanding what you say.
Even veterans have surprised me, because I was doing the electronic thing before it was sexy, so, me being a black DJ, there weren't a lot of black DJs doing it, especially on the East Coast. So unless they were like house guys, like the Chicago Detroit dudes. But for the most part, there weren't guys like me that started out in hip hop that, you gotta understand, like I didn't switch over to electronic music because the electronic wave happened. I started doing it because I liked it. Because I was touring and I was overseas and I was hearing this music for the first time. This was 2004, 2005, 2006. And so I'm hearing it and I'm like, yo, I want to play that too. So my moving over to the electronic world was purely organic. Now, the people that you're seeing over the last 3 years, they're in most cases not organic. They see what's happening and they want to get some. When I'm approached by black DJs, they all say the same thing. They also want to learn how to get some of that EDM money. I hate that phrase because that to me means you don't know the music. You just want to come over and cash out, and I don't respect that. So when I make a statement where I say I don't love it as much as I do, as I used to, it has a lot of moving pieces to it. It's because of statements like that and the fakery and the Paris Hilton that, you have to understand, I used to do Paris Hilton parties, and she really didn't give a damn about DJs. So to see her be a DJ and then very quickly become one of the highest paid DJs, imagine how someone like myself
I've been wondering,
feels.
how the hell, sorry to interrupt you, but how the hell did that happen?
Well, money. So here's the thing. She has a brand.
She's not relevant anymore.
But and we think that, but overseas, and that's the one thing that I have learned through touring overseas. We may think that a person is done. We may think that a person is dumb. We might think a person has no validity whatsoever. And you take them to Russia, or you take them to Brazil, or you take them wherever, and there are people waiting around the corner. I'm talking about 30,000 deep to see this person who we've said is dead in the water. And that's what happened. Because Paris is not making that big money here in the U.S. primarily. She's making maybe 10% of it, every now and then in Atlantic City, every now and then some LA stuff, every now and then some Vegas stuff. But in Dubai and Ibiza, she's killing it. And they don't care that she can't DJ. Because she's getting a pre-made mix, so she gets up there, she presses a button, puts her headphones on, and she waves her hand and waves her hair. It's a spectacle. So as a club owner in Ibiza, I can now charge the U.S. equivalent of $100 to $200, if not more than that, for general admission. That doesn't even say what the tables are going for. So it's worth it to them. And I used to be angry as I don't know what about that. Because I personally, you can look at flyers in my documentary, you can see parties that her and I've done together. This is back before she blew up. So to see her, and I'll say blew up as a DJ, let me say that, to know personally how she felt about DJs and then to see this happen, it's a bit tough, if that makes sense.
Right. So that's what I kind of, I understand that maybe the relevancy is different, as you just mentioned, throughout the world.
Right.
I may not be astute to that. But I've also heard other people who have traveled abroad or feel like they're part of the scene to say the same thing, like, why is someone like Paris Hilton getting the notoriety as a DJ? And then I've also seen, as you just mentioned, that to kind of expand on that, the whole press a button, like have a pre-mix thing. Like there's been some accusations that Tiesto, did that, and then he's made like at like Ultra last year, he screwed up and was like, see, I'm not pre-mixed, lie or whatever. Like is it people more skeptical of the skills of DJs because someone like Paris Hilton is popular?
Well, when you have, all right, Paris Hilton really doesn't belong in the conversation about DJs. Even though she's making a lot of money as a DJ, we all know that she's a parlor trick. We all know she's a novelty act, and so we no longer really include her in any real DJ conversations because she doesn't care anything. It was another way for her to make big money. So from a strictly commercial standpoint, I understood it and I couldn't knock the hustle. So I don't know if you followed that period. Where at one point when it first happened, I was blacking out on it. I couldn't stand it, and I made it known that I couldn't stand it. Then I thought about it.
Right.
Because someone said to me, she's taking money away from real DJs. And I thought about what they said, and I had to reply, and I said this to them, and I shared this on Twitter. You show me the venue that you, Mr. Real DJ, could go into, and because of your name being on the flyer, the club owner could now charge $250 for general admission, charge $10,000 for a table, X amount of dollars for a bottle. You show me that venue where you, Mr. Real DJ, could do that. And the person understood my point. She's not taking anything from us. That spot didn't exist for us. She's a novelty act. So she's no different than Aerosmith coming and playing at a place that a band in town ordinarily plays, and it's a garage band. Aerosmith is a bigger name. They can charge bigger ticket prices, and they're not really taking anything away from that garbage band because that garbage band is not at that branded level yet. And once I began to understand it from that standpoint, I was no longer angry because I realized that she's not taking anything from me. Would I like to occupy that space in front of that crowd? Yes. But as Superstar DJ Rose, my brand recognition is not as large as Paris Hilton's brand recognition. DJing be damned. You see what I'm saying? So I think we can sit around and spin our wheels and being angry about it and criticizing her if we want. But I think if we see it for what it actually is, we accept it and we move on. You know?
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. All right. So to kind of continue on, you mentioned your brand and how it's expanded, and I've even seen it expand since I met you on Twitter.
Right.
I don't know how many years now, but
right.
It's kind of crazy. So to kind of talk about like how your brand has expanded from being just that hobby to the DJ to known as a party rocker, like you say. So, and I've heard your mixes and I've seen videos, so I know you are. So it's not like I'm just, to the listeners that will listen to this podcast, I'm not just blowing smoke. But the point I'm trying to get at is kind of what's important to have that brand to market to those, and also why is it so important to have a club like the one like Havana and Atlanta and clubs that you have residencies? Why is residency become so important?
Okay, let's handle the brand part of it first. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, I think a lot of people know me as Rose, and their knowledge of me starts with that. What a lot of people don't know is I was a hip hop DJ for years before that under the name Rob Lover. And what ended up happening was, great story, is I was on tour. I was Christina Milian's tour DJ, and we were on tour in Russia. And I'll never forget this because it was a life-changing moment for me. We were playing a club called Infinity in Moscow, and we were on tour with Ja Rule at the time, and Ja Rule's DJ D Life, and I were sitting in the club listening to DJ play at Infinity. Because, we weren't playing at the club, we just happened to be there. So we're listening, and the guy is playing one of probably one of the first real open format sets I'd heard in a nightclub. I'd heard him on the radio and I'd seen AM, in small things, but this was a super club. And I really hadn't seen or heard a DJ play that way in a super club. So I'm listening. And Nirvana and Sweet Home Alabama. And mind you, again, we're in Moscow. And I'm listening to this guy. And I was like, I can do that. I have those records. But the venues that I'm in, if I try to do that, I'm done. So the 15-hour flight back to the U.S., the entire time that when I wasn't sleeping, it almost felt like it was a pivotal moment for me. And what's interesting about it is, prior to that, I had begun working on a mix under the Rob Lover name. The mix was called How to Party Like a Rock Star. And I was mixing rock records and hip-hop records and pop records, and just for fun. I didn't think I was going to put it out, right? No idea why I was putting so much time and effort into it. And in that, on that flight back, after I listened to him, I understood why. Because the universe was telling me that the Rob Lover thing had kind of run its course. And so by the time that I got back to the U.S., I had made a decision that I didn't know what I was going to do, per se, but I knew I was going to do something. I knew I was going to change. So long story short, I started trying to figure out ways to get booked to play different types of music. Now, with the name that I had, that wasn't easy because it harkened to hip-hop and kind of had an old-school feel, and it just kind of wasn't doing what it needed to do. Well, I started sending out that mix once I finished it, the How to Party to a Rock Star, a Party Like a Rock Star mix. Now, an interesting interesting story is I actually met Kim Kardashian in L.A. at Paris Hilton's record release party in 2006. Now, keep in mind, this was before the sex tape, and I mean, she was literally Paris' homegirl. Nobody knew who the hell she was outside of L.A. So anyway, I send a bunch of the CDs out to them at the Dash store. Well, Kim hits me up, and she's like, yo, I love it. And she gave it out to all the friends. She plays it in the car, even to the point that she wanted to do a drop for the second edition, which is, we actually play that in my documentary, her drop. That interaction with them and letting people all over LA hear it convinced me that switching was the right thing to do. Now, ended up going to a club that was opening in Atlanta that had kind of like a rockish, kind of gothish kind of feel, and we're looking for DJs. Went in, took a meeting, told them who I was, and the last thing I did was I gave them that CD. At this point, I'm still Rob Lover. So we talk about a week later, and they're like, it hasn't come out of the CD player since you gave it to us. So I said, okay. So they said they'd like to have me as a resident. I said, well, cool, let's do this. Let me play, but can I play under a new name that I've been thinking about? And the name was Ros. And a lot of people don't realize that Ros actually came from the Greek mythology story of Eros. I just took the E off because I thought DJ Eros sounded stupid. So taking the E off and just making it Ros and doing research to make sure that nowhere in the world that name actually meant anything, and it didn't. So it gave me an opportunity to define it. So when it comes down to the branding aspect of it, I created a logo, which I've never had a logo for Rob Lover. The winged dragon, which I still use to this day. Been very effective. I also made a crucial decision. And that decision was this. And I hope that, if you have any young DJs that listen to your podcast, I hope that they pay attention to this. I made a decision that I would never play a DJ gig without a cap. And if you ever look at any of my DJ pictures as Ros from the very beginning, 2008 is when I started doing the Ros thing. If you look at every last one of my pictures, you notice you never really see my eyes in the picture. All of that was by design. And where it came from was Batman. Literally, if you think about Batman, like, the pictures of Batman are always shadowy and you don't really, I took that. So essentially the cap being pulled down over my eyes was my cowl. And the flip side of that is I remember when I was a kid, LL Cool J never performed without his hat. So even if you didn't know who he was, the dude with the Kango. So for me, I was like, okay, if a person doesn't know who DJ Ros is, the black dude with the cap. You see what I'm saying? It became part of my branding and it has worked like a charm. It really has. It has exceeded anything that I ever expected. But the point that I'm making is, with all that being said, before I started, I had a vision of what I was attempting to do. I didn't have to worry about being dope because I was already a good DJ. I mean, it's not like I was a new DJ, but in order to separate myself, I wanted to be the black dude in the hat pulled low that played music that wasn't hip hop. That's essentially what I wanted to be. If a person saw that and then got interested and dug deeper, then they could find out about who Rose was and listen to my mixes and come to my parties, et cetera, and so on. But at the very least, I wanted them to be able to say, that black dude who wears the hat, he's good. And that was enough to actually have enough attached to my brand to grow. And just that simple way of looking at it has been tremendously successful for me. And it's led to all the other things that I've done.
Completely understand. So, in terms of kind of the second part of my question, do you think that a lot of DJs or people that are wannabe upcoming DJs don't think of what they do first and then brand accordingly, or is it just a lack of business sense?
Well, the biggest problem is that it's Mr. Me Too. That's the biggest problem. Mr. Me Too attitude. That, oh, Calvin Harris has his haircut cut like that. Oh, Calvin Harris has his shirt open like this. Or Tiesto does, wears these kind of headphones. That's what the problem is. Because when you have a sea of new people who just want to be DJs, like you have a situation where you got actors being DJs and porn stars being DJs and Paris Hiltons being DJs and athletes being DJs. I mean, you name it. People that you love music. You've been watching this for a minute. You see people every day that jump in the pool and you're like, how in the hell did they get there? Like, what are they doing DJing, right? The problem is because it's now the popular thing to do. Now, understand, I came up in the era where the DJ was in the corner. Nobody even gave a damn who was over there. You couldn't even see us, right? There's no lights, none of that stuff. We're just over there playing music and nobody cared. So the era that we came up in, we literally did it for the love of the art and the music because nobody gave a damn. The money wasn't that great, and there was no companies beating down our doors for endorsement. None of that was happening. So these newer guys, because they didn't come from that era and that mindset, they're looking at what's working and emulating it. And if you don't believe me, go to YouTube, pull up any festival. It doesn't matter which one. It could be Coachella, it could be, Ultra, whatever. And you tell me how many DJs you see come from behind the decks and stand up on the table. Just that alone. Just tell me how many people you see do that. And the reason that I point that out is you know what I'm talking about, right? You've seen this, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's even a blog called DJ Standing on Tables that mocks it.
Yeah, because I was even watching, I'm a fan of Axel and Grosso, and I was actually watching their Coachella set on YouTube the other day. And I've seen it when they played Tomorrowland, I've seen it when they played Ultra, and I noticed at some point either one or the other or both by the end of it are on the table, talking on the mic.
Yeah.
Which kind of I've always not understood why. That's the one thing that I could have a criticism in my own personal experience is, I get, saying a thank you or whatever, but what's with the, we have to get up above everybody? We already see you on a big, massive screen in those situations because it's a massive festival. Right. Why? And it's already a spectacle. I mean, you've already had your vocalists, you sing the vocals on the track in, costumes, or you have the go-go dancers, or you have the pyrotechnics going off. Why must they get on? I've never understood that.
It's a spectacle now. And that's the thing. When you think about these guys, now here's the thing. Everybody thinks that they're branding, right? I even hate that word because, it's one of those things that is being misused now. Everyone thinks that they're branding when they go and they get the skinny jeans and the black DJT and the man bun and, you name all this crap that these guys are doing. I'm specifically speaking about the EDM guys. And not to clown them. I'm not, sometimes it might sound a little cynical. But you have to understand, I am a lifer. So it's not like I'm Johnny come lately and I haven't seen all this stuff. I mean, I've seen from the very beginning to this. So, I have very definitive viewpoints on this. So on the EDM side specifically, when you look at how most of these guys are entering, The problem that I have with it is if your brand is derivative of a derivative of a derivative, right? What sets you apart? Like, if number one, if it's a festival and there's 17 DJs, no, it's probably a bit much, there's 10 DJs. And from the opening guy who wants to get his off too, so he's up there jumping around to 45 people and he's fist pumping and he's using posing and twisting knobs and all this other kind of stuff. And then the next guy comes up and he does the same thing. He's kind of wearing the same outfit, probably playing remixes of the same damn records. And the next guy comes up. By the time you've gotten to Tiesto, if you could survive all of that, you're not high as a kite by the time he gets on stage. You kind of expect something different. Now, to his credit, Tiesto does have a different presentation because Tiesto's presentation is not derivative of someone else. He's Tiesto. And he's been Tiesto before there was such thing as EDM. He was a trance god. So, what I'd like to see newer DJs attempt to do, be inspired by as many DJs as you want. However, I took a year between the time that I knew I was going to be Rose to the time that I played my first gig as Rose to figure out who in the hell Rose was going to be. And that's important because coming from a hip-hop background, I didn't even know how to dress for top 40 clubs or open format clubs or electronic clubs. I had no idea because I couldn't come in there and look like the hip-hop black guy. I wouldn't get booked. So I literally took time to figure out what clothing made sense. I established my connection with Adidas during that particular time, so I knew that one of my branding components would be that I would wear shell toes at every performance, regardless of where I was. So you got the cap and you got the shell toes. That's a branding thing that's me. So when I came out, I didn't look like anybody. You see what I'm saying? Like not only did I not sound like anybody, but I didn't look like them either. And that to me, I knew was a competitive advantage and I used it. And so if you look like the other 12 million EDM DJs that come and want to book play, gives a shit. I mean, pardon my language, but really, like, you can't say you're better because you got the same records. You see what I'm saying? You might mix them in a different order, but you got the same records. So what is it about you that's unique? I mean, yeah, you can bring in a guest list this week, but what about the next 3 to 4 weeks? You got to be good to make people want to come back. Because your friends are eventually going to get busy. So your friends you can't depend upon a guest list. Like me personally, I've never turned in a guest list in my life. I don't sell tables. That's not what I do. I'm a DJ. The way I look at it, the marketing people, they'd sell the tables. I bring people in because I'm good. And that's the difference. These new guys don't care about being good. They just want to be there.
Right. So, that aside, well, another thing that maybe we should address too, minus the business side, I want to get at why maybe in the last 10 to 15 years when the popularity of being a DJ has happened. Maybe this is after, now, I don't think it's been that long. I think after the late AM or why do DJs find the need to use sound effects, preferably the air horn, every 5 seconds?
Oh my God! You know, it's one of those things. You know, and I know I've used it before too. It's one of those things. The air horn goes back. All right, let me speak for myself. People from my era were using the air horn before it was actually called. It used to be called boat horn or whatever it is. It was called something different, but it was one of those things that came from, you got to understand, Cool DJ Herc was the one that actually started the whole DJ thing in the park, and and that was a Jamaican sound system. So air horns come all the way back to the early 70s when they were doing these big parties in the park, and because it actually was Jamaican guys doing the sound system, they would call them sound systems, the battling DJ groups were called sound systems then. They, of course, incorporate the air horn, which is, part of the Jamaican DJ culture, or selector culture. And it is moved from hip-hop all the way over to top 40. Now, when I hear electronic guys do it, it's a little weird. But I understand that, too, because AM was the person that really, back when it was called Electro in LA in 2004, 2005, 2006, in his mixes, AM would use it a lot, even when he was playing like a lot of higher end music. So it just kind of kept going from there. Now, if you're a new guy, and the only mixes that you're coming up on, especially the guys that go to YouTube and listen to all of ADM stuff, that's all you hear. So that's why you keep hearing not only the air horn, but you hear the DMC sample. Oh yeah, that's where you get it from, because they all came up on that era of music on YouTube, and they played it over and over and over. So whatever samples that AM found, or whoever was popular, these guys will go find them too. The way that AM used it, they would use it. So that's how it came to a situation where you got this whole generation of DJs abusing the same samples and all sounding alike because they're inspirations. Like, see, here's the difference, and I'll just try to make this real quick. I came up in an era where there was no YouTube. So if I'm at a concert and I see Jam Master Jay do a routine of Peter Piper, I've got to try to remember what he did, come home, get my doubles out, and try to emulate that from memory. So there was no way for us to copy exactly because we had nothing to reference. You see what I'm saying? But these guys could go to YouTube or whatever and play the same mix over and over and over and over and over. So they've actually mastered what the person did exactly. And once you do that, that now becomes a part of your DJ sensibility, and you start finding yourself doing things out of habit that you probably shouldn't be doing. And that's really kind of how the air horn thing really has kind of gotten out of control, because everybody's source is the same. You see if that makes sense?
Right. So there's just no originality because they're looking at what AM did back in the day and other DJs that were, new and game at that time. Yep. And now that's what they
like me, now here's the funny thing. I've used air horns on mixes when it's appropriate, but I've never used an air horn in a live set in my life. Not even once. I've never done it. Like never. Even when I played hip hop, have I used an air horn in a live set in a club. I never understood that. To me, it didn't make any sense, and it just wasn't a part of what I do. But these guys, not only do they do it on the radio mixes, on their, their mixtapes, but they're also doing it in clubs, and people in the club looking like, what the hell are you doing? So I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've heard it too.
Yeah, like, I didn't mind it when AM did it, because I remember those samples.
Right.
But he didn't do it every other song. He did it when it was necessary, and he could gauge the mood of the room.
Right.
What I get at is the DJs that they'll be finally playing music that people are liking because they're on a roll, and then they just kind of stop and play a bunch of air horns, and you're like, why?
And then a DJ drop. You are listening to DJ so-and-so, as if anyone gives a damn.
Yeah, and that's, is it necessary to drop what DJ name is during the set, though? Like, I've never understood that either.
No, that whole thing is a new thing. New-ish thing. What I mean by that is it's a new era thing. Now in the hip-hop world, I come from call and response, so that's a lot of, the Kid Capri, DJ Cool, you're on the mic and, interacting with the crowd, and you're saying something, they're saying something back, and, if you're in a party where that's appropriate, it's a great thing. It's a good party, everybody's having a good time. Now, that doesn't necessarily work everywhere. You can't necessarily be an EDM DJ that does that. Now, people like myself and Chucky, because Chucky comes from a background that has a hip-hop element to it too. So yes, we both do mic work during our EDM sets, and we do have situations where the crowd is interacting with us, things that we're saying on the mic, not the whole time, but we do that because that is, number one, it's just kind of like us being true to our roots, but it also is one of those things that just for the style of it, we play aggressively. So it works well for us live. Now, using a drop, this is DJ so, no. It's not a radio show. So to me, it's not appropriate. You're killing the vibe. Like, if my name is on the flyer and I've introduced myself before I've gone on, or whoever's brought me on has introduced me. After I've said, hey, this is DJ Rose, hope you're ready, put your hands, whatever it is that I'm saying to get the crowd primed and let them know that I'm there, I really don't need to say much else after that. Let's go. Let's party, and I need to be DJing. You know what I mean? I don't need to be doing a radio mix. So from a DJ standpoint, I'm not a fan of that, and I've heard it in clubs where it's disruptive to the vibe. So I know exactly what you mean.
Right. So, yeah, to get at that, that's just doesn't make sense, really.
Right, it doesn't.
But
everybody wants to be known, though. That's the key. You know, they're not necessarily worried about rocking the party. You know, I'm a resident DJ, music director of one of the top clubs in the U.S., Havana Club, and we've been a top 100 club for 5-6 years. I think going on our 6th year, and we just recently started bringing in guest DJs from other markets that are supposedly known and popular guys. And I'm not going to slam anybody, but one thing I will say is this: in watching these guys are proficient in mixing, but have no clue on how to move a party. And that is where the disparity between someone like yourself, and you're saying, well, I really haven't seen anybody rock it like AM since AM, and the DJ is. That's where the disparity lies. Because these guys all came up in the era of an AM, so they're so busy attempting to show that they're good at mashing up and scratching and things of that nature, but the people in the audience really don't give a damn. They came to have a good time. It's someone's birthday. It's someone, you know, an office pool is out. They're all having a good time. It's someone's bachelorette party or bachelor party. They just want a party. They don't care if you get scratched. They don't care about your DJ drop, and they damn sure don't care about your air horn. They want you to rock the party. That's what they're going to remember. And the new generation of DJs doesn't understand that. They want to show all their tricks. No one cares. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. That's also when the comment that you made at the very beginning about you don't enjoy it the way that you used to, because you're not getting DJs who care about rocking parties as much anymore. And it matters. The DJs want to be celebrities now.
Right.
They want you to care that they're there.
And I imagine that's probably why there's been such a shift towards EDM as it is now, because what part of the culture is that kind of party atmosphere. You're there to party and have a good time. You're not there to just for the sake of being seen or see somebody else.
Yeah.
That makes.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, what I hope, sincerely, and I'm already knowing that my hope is going out the window, but it used to be a situation where the DJs in the electronic scene wanted to play the best records, right? And it's not really necessarily about playing records that everyone knows. It's about setting a vibe and having a certain kind of energy. So you can still break records in the electronic scene without having to go through and play everything that everyone knows. Like, you know, of course, like the Tiesto, and well, not Tiestos, but the Zed records and, you know, all the Calvin Harris. You don't have to run through all of those. You can just play good records. What is starting to happen, though, is because the EDM DJs want to be known too. They're now starting to get away from just selling a vibe. They're selling themselves and popular records too. And that's not a good sign. Because again, here's the thing. If you and I are in a club, and I'm the DJ and you're the person who's there to have a good time, I'm important, but you're actually more important. Because if you decide to leave, and I remain, and everyone who thinks like you leaves, no matter what I do, it doesn't matter. Everybody's gone, right? People who think like you are gone. So my job is to service you, not the other way around. Your job is not to come and be in reverence of me as a DJ, if that makes sense. Because that's where the disparity is happening. You have a situation where the DJs expect you to come in to want to see them and be in reverence of them, rather than coming in and saying, you know what, I'm going to kill it tonight, and I'm going to make sure that they have a great time. That's the way it used to be.
Right.
And I still carry that. Even though my brand is important, it's more important that at the end of the night, you come to me because you're still there, because I was good. You come to me or come to whoever, I see you walking down, you're like, yo, DJ killed it. Like, you don't even have to know my name. But if I serviced you to the point that you stayed and you're sweating, you got shoes off, and, you know, the lights are up, but you're still there, you and your friends are smiling, taking selfies, that means that I did my job. That means that I took care of you as a customer, and you are now happy, and the transaction was successful. But you have to be a mature DJ to actually understand that. And I'm not saying mature in age. You have to be mature in your professionalism to understand that the concert goer, the club goer, is the most important part of the equation.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I do want to touch on your documentary before we wrap this up. It's
Sure.
almost been an hour already. We could talk for hours.
Right.
But
Yeah, we absolutely could.
We'll probably have to do this another episode of the podcast in the future. But I really want to let people know about your documentary and kind of where they can go and download it and see it. And I've seen the trailer. It's epic.
Thank you.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't, because I don't know all the details of where to get it, which is why I'm kind of.
Sure.
But I've been on your website. I know you've been working hard on this for years.
Right.
I've seen the
update after update.
Yeah. So just kind of, I guess, just talk about kind of the idea of. I mean, it's a must-see. I feel like people need to see it based on the trailer. And I guess maybe because I'm huge into documentaries in general, but I think this is awesome for people also like me that love music and like want to learn more about the DJ game and kind of respect that part of music. So just kind of go into where it became like an idea to now it's going to be released and.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, here's the key thing. Like, you know, I just started filming about 5 or 6. At the very beginning, probably. Let's see, so it's 2015. So I probably started filming 2009 ish. And I didn't have any plan. It was a new situation where the roast thing was new and the crowds were bigger and the clubs were fancier, and I just kind of wanted to get footage of it. So I wasn't thinking of doing the film, but I filmed a lot. And you know, no matter where I was in the world, I always had a small camera with me, and I would pull it out, and you know, I'd get crowds and you know, performances, and you know, interacting with fans or whatever. And then as I started to go through it, and I'm looking at the stuff, and I'm thinking, there's something here, right? You know, so what we initially were going to do, me and the guy who was the original videographer, we were going to do 24 hours in the life of roast. This is probably 2011 when we had that idea, and it wasn't going to be a documentary. It's just going to be like a day in a life thing. Well, the more we started to film and the more I started to write, and kind of the personality of it changed. And what I decided to do, because I watched David Guetta's movie and I watched Swedish House Mafia's, both of their documentaries, and Hartwell's documentary, and really I've seen every DJ documentary, be it YouTube or something I could purchase, that's out. And the one thing that I noticed was that every single one of them told the DJ story of a superstar DJ from like the David Guetta, the big guys, right? And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, how does the guy who's in his mom's basement, like, I mean, he could dream of this, but how does he relate to it? And that's when the idea of I Am Roast became a documentary, because what I decided to do, rather than tell a story from 30,000 feet, which was what these guys are doing, we decided to tell the story from 1,000 feet. We wanted to tell it from the ground. So we wanted to show the lifestyle of someone who is booking his own gigs, and he loses gigs sometimes, and you know, the time doing sponsorships and how those sponsorships came about, and you know, live performances, and you know, testimonials from people who have known me for a long time from the hip hop side, people who do business with me at large clubs. We wanted to really kind of show what it really looks like not this shiny, pretty, I'm a perfect rich DJ, because I'm not. You know, I'm not that. I am probably just like 85% of the people who will watch this documentary. So it just became one of those things where we wanted to fill that space that told a DJ story that was a little more relatable. And it wasn't being sold to an audience from a standpoint of, hey, look at me. It's being told from the standpoint of, you can do this too. and let me show you how I did it, kind of thing, if that makes sense. So it goes all the way from the beginning of my DJ career, and then it starts to foreshadow the end of it, which is really cool because, one thing we haven't talked about is this is actually my last year of DJing. And when I say that to people, a lot of times they're like, what are you talking about? But I surpassed everything I wanted to do years ago. So at this point, it's not that I don't have goals. I mean, I'm staying to the Olympics. The Olympics are in my second home country, Brazil, in summer, and that's going to be my retirement party. But for me, I want this documentary to be a swan song and it's neatly coming about at the end of my career. So I know you say you haven't seen it, but you haven't seen it because it's not out. What we decided to do is initially it was going to come out in 2013, and then unfortunately my dad passed, and I decided to take a break for a minute and kind of recalibrate after that because the storyline changed because I was referencing him in the movie and I was trying to finish it so he could see it, and then with him passing, the tenor of the movie changed. So we decided just to hold off a little bit and get rid of some things, and I changed directors. And the movie that we're producing now, I'm very proud of it. I feel as if that if you're someone who's new, if you're someone who's midway and trying to figure out how to get to the next step, there's something there for everybody. And a lot of people stop by. DJ Chucky's in there, and T-Pain's in there, and Christina Milian's in there. There's a bunch of people that are in it, and I just think it's very different. It's very unique, and with me being at a point where I'm ready to call it a day on my career, it's a great thing to have as my swan song. So right now we're looking at first quarter of 2016. There'll be a new trailer that'll drop probably New Year's Day, but I think people will get a lot out of it. I'm really excited about it, and I'm happy to be able to put something out there like that to engage the next generation.
That's awesome. So in terms of that being dropped, is it going to be actually in theaters, or is it going to be like Netflix? Like, where will we be able to possibly see it?
See, here's the thing about that. We've had, and we're still in discussions with all of that, and I'll just be honest about this. The initial conversation was with, I don't know if I should say the name, but I'll say it anyway. I was with HBO. And that, we decided not to go that route. And there's a reason we decided to not do that. I want to make the film that I want to make. So what that means is all of the music that's in it, I don't have the rights to. And it would be a situation that if we did the HBO or the Netflix or something of that nature, that we're going to have to license all of that music, which is going to cost us a fortune, and most of it we're probably not going to get. So that being said, what we've decided to do, since most people are actually consuming the content via mobile platforms, we're going to do the festival circuit, and then we're going to release it for free on mobile platforms. So it'll be a situation where it'll be debuted on my website, and then it'll be available on Vimeo, Vivo, and YouTube. I want as many people to see it as possible. I don't want to charge anybody for it because I don't want to pay anybody their licensing fee for the music. I want to release the music. Because you got to understand, I come from an era where we made mixtapes and we took music from all different types of sources and we created a product and we put it out there, and either we sold it on the street corner or we gave it away for free, right? So I'm looking at the movie the same exact way. I want to source the music that I want to use in the movie. I want to source, everything that I want without having to license any of it and put it out for consumption. So that's what we decided to do. Now, because I've been bitten by the film bug, the second go round, because there will be a second film, and I can't really go into what that'll be. It'll be DJ oriented, but that one will be done the traditional way, where the music will be either original music or we license it, and we will go through the HBOs and things of that nature. But in order for everybody that I would like to see this film to see the film, I'm going to give it away.
Well, that's awesome. I look forward to it. I'm pretty. Like I said, I've seen the trailer that's on your website, so I'm
right.
stoked. So, all right. Well,
I appreciate that so much.
No, not a problem. Like I said, I've been keeping up with you for years now. So, before I let you go, I do want to let the listeners of the podcast know where they can find you and find out more information on you. So I know your website is iamross.com, correct?
Right. And to be honest with you, what I like to do is send everyone to that website. The reason being is because all of my other social media portals are accessible through the website. And so that's my social hub. It's www.iamross.com, and that's IAMROS.com. Log on, and you can contact me directly there via email. Shoot me an email, and if people enjoy the mixes, you can download mixes there as well. All of my pictures are there, background on who I am, and a lot of my history is there. So, it's a new website we launched this year. We're very excited about it. And as I said earlier, the actual film will debut on the website first. So we're going to drive everybody to the website first, and then you'll be able to see it after that on portals, mobile portals all over the place.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, everybody. Go to his website. I'm already been on it, but
very cool.
I look forward to seeing the documentary when it comes out in probably the beginning of next year. So thanks again for joining my podcast. And like I said, we'll probably have to do this again soon when more projects arise and you want to just chat a little bit more about music and the business. So again, I thank you for joining my podcast. And I also want to mention too, like I mentioned in the previous podcast, you've also written some things for my blog, Love the Music Project. So now you can kind of put the voice and the wisdom to those posts if you have read them already, or if you haven't read them, feel free to go back and read those. So again, I want to thank you, Rose, for joining me, and I'll talk to you in the future, and have a great evening or rest of your night.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. Same to you. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.